responsibility to protect staff and students and our property, but also the journalists who would be on campus become, our responsibility. The university does reserve the right to access who comes onto or onto campus or not, and to limit that access. Now, the situation this afternoon was quite volatile in that we had many people from Braamfontein come onto our campus who were not students, who were not staff members, and who broke through two gates, to come onto campus. And we're now in a position where we have to try to get them off the campus. But, some of them pretend, to be students, some of them pretend to be journalists, etc. And so in order to calm the situation and to control it as far as possible, members of the public were not allowed to come in.
Luckily, they win some money when they enter this competition. This is less about the competition. If you're not familiar with the competition, it's the one that Old Mutual and Standard Bank co-sponsor every single year in conjunction with the National Treasury. And they've been doing this for many, many, many years. I was fortunate enough to be in Cape Town for the budget speech this year and engage with a number of these young people. I'll tell you their names and I'll tell you who they are. I'm joined by Leila Lind Devar. I'm also joined by Huitsione Mahonare, and I'm joined by Spesihle Tusini. Leila is from the University of the Witwatersrand, so is Huitsione. Spesihle is from Northwest University and was a runner-up in the postgraduate category of this competition. So we're going to be talking all things economics, and we'll talk all things fixing and saving the economy. They've got some great ideas, and I hope you and I can engage it. And you, of course, can. Give me a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. I'm also taking your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Tweet me. It is at Oliver_speaking. That's on Twitter. And it's simply Oliver Dickson on Facebook. You and I can engage on those particular platforms. And look, if you have any questions or comments pertaining to the budget speech that was delivered last week by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, I do welcome that. So give us a call. I really, really want to hear your views on it. Your views matter just as much. Let's take a quick break. On the other side of this, we begin the show.
This Week Today with Oliver Dickson. SAfm has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. This Week Today with Oliver Dickson.
Give us a call, 086 000 2032, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation. We begin the conversation with Leila Lind Devar. Leila, good evening. I almost said good morning.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
Really, really honored, and it's a pleasure having you here. Of course, it's a very difficult conversation, right?
Absolutely.
We have a very complex economy, deeply broken in many ways. But as you were doing your research and as you listened to the budget speech last week, and you got an opportunity collectively with your group to engage the finance minister, and you guys thought about what the most important question would be to ask the finance minister, what were the biggest concerns top of mind for you?
Well, in terms of the budget speech specifically, as young people in that group, we noticed that unemployment and youth unemployment weren't really addressed in his budget speech. So when it came to our opportunity to ask him a question, that is where our focus lied, and of course also on the state of Eskom, especially now with the new tax incentives for arguably wealthier people to implement, solar panels and things like that, and what that actually means for Eskom and what it means in the future for the rest of South Africa.
I do want us to speak about Eskom because that was a big issue, and we'll speak about the concern is, you are deeming or you're rendering ESCOM unsustainable and unviable because you're telling people stop being ESCOM customers, right? But we'll get to that. Let's start with unemployment. What do you understand to be the unemployment crisis in South Africa? What does it stem from? Why are we not creating jobs?
Well, a lot of the time what people say is that there's this mismatch of skills. That seems to be the root cause. And I think, in fact, this is also what I spoke about in my essay, is that it's about investing in industries that absorb this labor. So it's not so much about the skills mismatch. I think the focus on the skills mismatch is sometimes maybe a mistake to focus on, but rather investing in industries that we know will absorb the labor that currently exists with the current skills that exist. And that's really how I see it, because as someone who was born in 2001, I don't necessarily know how to code, and I've got an undergraduate degree now. So in terms of trying to upskill, I think it's very important, but I think that's a long-term goal. And our essays were actually focused on the medium term, the next 5 to 10 years. So it's about investing in industries that will absorb the labor now: agriculture, agri-processing, manufacturing, energy,
To what extent? To what extent do external and international factors play a role in those industries not being able to absorb? I mean, the Russia-Ukraine conversation has been a painful one in the agricultural sector and the agrarian economy, as well, perhaps, to many would argue, in certain parts of the manufacturing sector.
Absolutely. I think you mentioning the Russian-Ukraine war is an interesting one, because what I really think it did is also show where our potential lies as a country. Africa can feed the world. We know this. And I think a crisis such as that one, an external crisis, really showed that we could have been at the forefront of that solution in terms of the rest of the world, in terms of exports. And I think it's about, as you said, both international and national people realizing that investment in such solutions will really put South Africa, I think, at an edge, at an advantage. So when things like that come up, we're actually part of the solution and benefit from it.
Yeah. Huitione, I want to bring you into the conversation. Huitione is joining us on our telephonic line this evening. Unemployment was a big concern, and it was, as Leila says, glaringly lacking in the minister's budget speech at the time. What are we missing as far as unemployment stimulus is concerned? The president celebrated more than 1 million job opportunities having been created, but no one really knows if those are real, because it's data. We have to take them at their word for it, right? Stats SA recently published, yesterday I think, published the unemployment stats 2 days ago, my apologies. And while there is a slight tick upwards, those quarter-on-quarter slight upward tick and slight downward tick doesn't change the bigger picture much. 1 in 3 South Africans are still largely unemployed. Where are we missing it?
Yes, hello, thank you for having me. As far as unemployment is concerned, unemployment really is one of the biggest challenges we have right now. And as far as fixing unemployment, I think the best thing to do is a combination of short-term strategy and long-term strategy. And as Leila said, our essay focused on mainly on the short term, the medium term. And in that instance, it's just a matter of making sure that you sustain growth industries that can absorb the available skills, because it's also an issue of skills mismatch, which I completely think is kind of overused. Just take care of the industries that can absorb the current skills, and then in terms of a long-term picture, we could look at developing the skills needed, so that as time goes on in the future, the skills that are required by the industry are the skills that the people have, and that goes back to reforming the education, rewriting the syllabuses, make sure that you give people adequate skills.
Should we change, or at least reconsider, the industries that we rely on as intensive industries as far as human resources are concerned? For instance, the agrarian economy, the manufacturing sector, those require hands and feet, right? They require people on the ground. Those are, mining sector also being an example. But should we reconsider our reliance on those 3 particular sectors, for instance? And maybe, as Leila says, look, there is a skills of the future that we will sort of need, and we need to equip our young people for that.
As far as we definitely go here to expand the state of industries that are people going into. I don't think we should abandon them completely. Right now, to solve the immediate crisis in the sector, we need to focus on them, we need to grow them, we need to nurture them.
Yeah.
And maybe as time goes on, we could have a strong advantage, even in global standards, in those industries. But it's like I said, also as time goes on, we need to develop new industries, new skills, and get people into that new industry, give them new skills. It's not that we need to abandon them, but we do need to expand the scope of skills that our people have.
Yeah, Specialist Tusini, I want to bring you into the conversation. Specialist Tusini is with the Northwest University. As far as unemployment is concerned, this crisis is as old as our democracy, really, right? And we're not really making progress on it. Things are getting much, much, much worse. A lot of businesses will argue that what stands in our way from creating more jobs is a untenable investment environment, trade regulations that are perhaps constrictive, as well as political uncertainty. There are no quick solutions to that, but where do we start?
No, thank you very much, my brother, for inviting us. I'm ready to be here. No, actually, the point that you are raising are we are a nation faced with a lot of challenges that are contributing to high unemployment level experiencing. As we speak, we are sitting at 32.9. That is according to the latest data released by SAfm.
Specifically, I'm just going to pause you there. Just because your line isn't very clearly, we can't hear you too audibly. I'm going to put you back to my producer and see if we can get you on a better line over there. Hopefully we can. Give us a call, 086 000 2032. That is the number to dial. We're also taking your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Do remember that this show is being live streamed, so you can watch it on our Facebook, Twitter, as well as our YouTube platforms and all the SAfm digital platforms. You're able to watch the show. So give us that call, 086 000 2032. Especially, hopefully we have you on a better line there. Do you mind starting again there?
No. First and foremost, thank you for inviting us. I'm happy to be part of your show. The issue that you highlighted is valid. As a nation, we are faced with a lot of problems that are contributing to high youth unemployment, the rate that we are experiencing, and equally the unemployment in general, because as we speak, we are sitting at about 33%. That is according to the latest statistics released by SAfm. So we are faced with a lot of challenges. As you were tasked to provide this essay as part of budget speech competition entry, we note that the investment or efforts that have been made by government to address these challenges are undermined by the industry, like the likes of energy sector, that is not that is monopolized actually, not open for competition, and the corruption that redirect resources that are meant for public benefit to individuals, and also what we call spending that is mostly focusing on recurrent items. So government is not spending enough on capital items like of infrastructure, building new state-owned enterprise that will generate revenue for government to be able to service that debt in the near future.
Yeah.
So we are on a downward spiral.
Yeah, absolutely. 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial. Let's move to SOEs for a minute and focus on that. We spend a lot of money bailing them out, Leila, like a lot of money. And we spend a lot of money servicing debt pertaining to a lot of. We are now going to take on 256 odd billion rand of Eskom's debt off of their debt book onto the sovereign debt book, giving them some breathing space. But that's debt that you and I as taxpayers now have to absorb. Are SOEs sustainable on our balance sheet as a country, or is it something we need to reconsider altogether? And that's an ideological conversation, but it has economic implications.
Yes, absolutely. And I also think it depends on your time period. At the moment, we know that they're not sustainable. Load shedding is our prime example of that. However, I do think that there is a way of restructuring, and there is current restructuring happening, like from the unbundling of Eskom to in fact, and this is rather unpopular, but private sector contribution to SOEs. Those are solutions to the problems we have now. I personally, as a young person in this country, I think it's unproductive to be pessimistic. So I am hopeful that they will become sustainable, and they will continue to exist in a way that benefits South Africans in the long term. Because we're talking about these services that they provide being affordable for most of South Africans, and I think that's what has to be the priority, and that's why we have SOEs. But unfortunately, right now, you're correct. It's a complete unsustainable amount of debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Specifically, you guys engaged the finance minister on that SAA bailout. I want you to speak about the culture of bailouts and what Treasury should be doing about institutions that are SOEs that are failing.
No, that remains a challenge, because over the years, the government has been pumping money towards these state-owned enterprises, but they are not receiving us any positive results. So, even though we can't say with the confidence that they should be handed over to private sector, that is emerging as a direction that is being promoted, but equally, spending on them is not helping the nation, because these resources could have been used to assist the poor, to skill the youth, to skill the population, because the two critical sectors of production come from our society, that is entrepreneurs and labor. So for economy to work, we need to prioritize those areas. Equally, we see that the entire infrastructure maintenance is not the proper. Lacks of water and sanitation. There's a lot of two challenges, like the people getting sick, becoming less productive, population that is languishing on poverty. But if government could at least prioritize those transport infrastructure, roads, we know the state of our roads. Everywhere we are driving, like we are jumping on potholes. That is discouraging investment. At least if that government spending is directed on those areas, we will be in a better position. Because historically, municipalities and SOEs, they were the main spenders, or they were contributing a significant amount on infrastructure spending. But as we speak, they are facing a lot of constraints, because they can't generate revenue to continue with the spending. They can't borrow, because financial institutions are rejecting them for no reason. So that is creating a situation where we are, as a country, we are experiencing a decrease in spending generally on infrastructure that can assist the economy. Creating.
Huitione, there still is a fear, especially amongst economists on the left, that if you get rid of state-owned enterprises that deliver fundamental basic needs and outsource that to the private sector, you'll end up in a situation where poor people can't afford electricity, where poor people can't afford water, or any of the other basic necessities that SOEs provide to this country or to the population. Is that a fear rooted in fact and data that supports it, or is it irrational, ideological, I guess, grandstanding?
The thing of opening up the market that state-owned enterprises are dominant in, I think it shouldn't be a matter of getting them completely from the government to the private sector. I think in terms of, let's look at Eskom. Eskom is practically a monopoly in energy generation. But I think to open the market more, let private producers come in, join the national grid, and be able to provide power. It could help alleviate some of the load shedding we've been experiencing, as the chip is seeming to become a norm. So it's just a matter of, if positions where state and enterprises have a lot of market power and they're critical monopolies. Just open the market a little bit, encourage some competition, and look, the competition is good because if ESCOM had some competition in every generation, I could assure you we wouldn't be in this mess right now. The competition would have kept it on its toes. It's a matter of just open the market a little bit more to the private sector.
Yeah. Does the private sector trust that the policy will remain that for a long time? Because you can't invest into an renewable energy plant and 20, 30 years from now, when your contract comes to expiration, ESCOM's policy changes because the politics of the day is different.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. But immediately right now, load shedding, for example, it is costing the private sector, and it cheats the economy about 900 billion per day. So they do need to move off grid. They do need to become more resistant to the rolling blackouts, more resistant to the load shedding. So, as far as ESCOM goes, the situation doesn't seem to improve. So it's definitely in the best interest to find alternative power sources. But in terms of the regulations, as time goes on, who knows what will happen, but I doubt it will be a complete reversal.
I'd love to hear from you. Send us a WhatsApp voice note on 0614-104-107. I'm also taking your calls on 086 000 2032. Leila, I want us to move on to the priorities of our budget. We spend a lot of money on education. We spend a lot of money on healthcare. We spend a lot of money on safety and security. A lot of, I think, debt being our second biggest line item potentially, right? So we spend a lot of money on servicing debt. But we also spend a lot of money on the public wage bill. We know it to be 700 billion rand from the 1.7 trillion rand that we have, that National Treasury was able to collect. Let's start with the public wage bill. The conversations are ongoing at the moment at the Bargaining Council about a wage increase. Potential strikes would emanate from that. The minister in his medium term came up with a figure and threw 3% in there, and clearly that was rejected. And it's uncertain whether or not the fiscus can support and sustain an above inflation wage increase. But the sentiment remains that our public wage bill is bloated. It must be a very difficult decision to make for anyone to say, look, how do we restructure our public wage bill? Is there data that can guide us?
As far as I understand...
Sorry, that's for Leila. I'll come to you very, very shortly on that.
As far as I understand, the problem has been, and this is on past data, actually it's specific to the period in our essay that we had to refer to that was a period of low growth in our country. So that's about 2015 to 2019. And that was a point where, as a country, we were getting poorer, but the wage bill was increasing, right? So it's almost as if we're in the same position now. And it is a tricky one because you keep mentioning ideology, and that's a big part in it. What does it mean to tell people that you can't increase or that you can't pay? But as an economist, we talk about scarcity. We talk about only having a budget. It's a budget speech. There's a limited amount of money, and unfortunately, that's where conflicts arise. And especially at the moment in our country where we have problems like ESCOM and servicing all that debt you were talking about. I think debt that actually they spend more money servicing than actually on education and health. And that's tricky, We have to think about those factors when thinking about something like increasing the wage bill that takes that much money. So I can't actually say that I have the answer, and I'm not too entirely sure about the data, but so far, it's also about how much money is going into it and also the productivity that's coming out of it. That's also, unfortunately, a difficult question to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. Specifically, does the finance minister have the answers about the wage bill?
It's clear that the minister or national treasurer is determined to continue with that decision not to increase public wage bill. But the challenges that we are confronted with are as a result of poor growing economy. So the first task at hand is to make sure that our economy grows. The majority of our challenges that we are facing as trade unions are threatening to take to the street, which will create chaos in a already struggling economy. It's better for government to put more effort on making sure that the money is spent on necessary or important areas that will allow economy to grow. As we speak, we have 55.5% of population living below poverty line. That is according to the World Bank. So those who make political analysis, so we are in a volatile economy. Anything can happen. People are disparate. So it's really important that, as I mentioned earlier, key economic areas are prioritized. Investment in businesses are being important infrastructure, receive necessary investment for things to flow, so that we are able to make trade more efficient. The likes of information and communication infrastructure or technology is known by as ICT. It is the center of modern age communication. Businesses need to communicate. International trade communication is at the center. Transportation for businesses. Energy, that is the really critical one, because ESCOM supposed to supply us with the energy, but it's failing, which is motivating disinvestment. People being reluctant to bring new investment, because you can't really participate meaningfully on a collapsing economy. So that is my input for now.
Yeah. But I mean, all of those things take time, right? If you say, okay, let's fix infrastructure, that's a 10, 15-year plan. You say, okay, let's get our transport network sorted. We start with Transnet. It's another 10 years you have to consider fixing that. When public servants are asking for an increase now, the economy is growing at the same rate at the moment, nominally, as the rate of the population is growing. So effectively, we're in a period of no growth, right? And all the growth we're experiencing now are recovery-based growth, recovering from, the Ukraine-Russia war, recovering from previously before that COVID, recovering from the effects of the floods along the coast of South Africa. We're in a recovery period if we are making any gains at all. And public servants are asking for an increase now. Is there space in the fiscus and on the balance sheet to be able to find space to give public servants a livable increase?
Yeah, what you are pointing out is correct. The recent projections up to 2024 of economic growth are below 2%. So that is the type of economy we are going to live with. And historically, when you look back at history, it has been growing at 1.4% at average since 2009 to 2019. That will mean, as the government is working hard to make sure that the challenges that the challenges experienced by economy are getting necessary attention, we will not need to punish government workers who are already in the system. The issues need to be resolved for public service to continue, especially essential services, so that our economy, at least while the challenges are being addressed, get it to make it the necessary progress through workers. Yes.
Yeah. Khwitiana, is there an opportunity to restructure our public sector and our public wage bill, or entirely, where we can say, these are actual priority areas that are developmental in nature, and not all public service may necessarily fit into that developmental agenda in the medium term. Therefore, we're going to bite the bullet and make some hard decisions and only give certain people an increase and not everybody.
Yeah, I think there is always room for improvement. I think what needs to happen is that government, union leaders, businesses, and everyone involved in this discussion should really just have the top-down say, this is the fact, this is what's happening, this is the solution you are proposing, and everyone needs to come to a consensus where everyone is committed to making sure that the future of our country is better than what it is now, because right now it's not good. And also, I think it's also a matter of making sure that you get your money's worth. because we've seen in the past few years, the government HB has been skyrocketing. It's been going higher and ever higher. But at the same time, the productivity has kind of fallen down. Services provided by government have been, they've all been in decline recently. So it's also a matter of making sure that, especially the government is paying this huge amount of money, they should also find ways to make sure that they get their money so to make sure that productivity is consistent with the wages that they are paying. So there is room for improvement. We can come to a suitable conclusion that works for everyone.
Yeah. Leila, National Treasury gives money to the Minister of Finance and they figure it out. National Treasury doesn't say we're giving you money only very specifically to appoint so many maths teachers or so many science teachers. You can't use this money to appoint LO teachers or consumer studies teachers. And therefore, it is left at the discretion of political principals that may not necessarily understand the country's economic trajectory. It's a tough political question, but should we change that? Do you think that technocrats and economists with the National Treasury should have oversight on what money is spent on in each department?
Look, actually, I don't actually think that's as difficult a question as it might be. I think in general, they should, auditing in general, where money is going, that should be a priority. Coming out of state capture, coming out of things. So what you're using a micro example, is it LO teachers or math teachers? But I think it's definitely a solution to make sure money is going where it needs to go and monitoring that. We're in an age where we have to monitor everything because money disappears. In my essay specifically, I spoke about how in a period of low growth, there was actually an increase in government spending, but unmatched growth. So what happened, And so monitoring is actually the solution to that problem. And I don't think it's actually such a difficult question to answer.
What was that government spending increase geared towards in the period of low growth?
So government, for instance, it was government spending on infrastructure. It increased from 2015 to 2019. But that was a period of low growth. So as much as government spending on infrastructure was increasing, that was not resulted in matched growth in the economy. So where did the money go? That is the question.
Yeah. Specifically, do you think National Treasury should have that level of power as far as directing what the money should be spent on, beyond just auditing it, right? Knowing where the money went is one thing, but saying what the money should be spent on is another thing. Ministers make a case. They say, these are my programs, please fund it. But once the money is there, they are at the discretion to spend it on other things.
I lost the question. I'm not sure it may be because of our line not being.
Yes. Our line is not pretty great. I'm going to put you back and see if we can get you on a better line. And while we do that, let's have a listen at this WhatsApp voice note on our WhatsApp line. You can send through on 0614 104 107. I'm taking your calls on 086 000 2032.
Hi, good evening, Oliver, and your guests. Yeah, understandably, we are largely focused on ESCOM because of energy crisis, load shedding, and just recently announced by the former CEO that there was high-profile politicians that are involved in corruption within ESCOM. So now, notwithstanding that,
my apologies for that echo. Let's see if we can get that fixed and have that voice note replayed back to you, but you can give us a call 086 000 2032. Just a couple of gremlins in our lines at the moment. Telephone lines, studio lines, everything just not cooperating with us at this moment. I don't know, specifically, if you can hear me much clearer now, and if we have a good line, you and I. But the question was, should we consider a policy and legislative regime where the National Treasury, beyond just divvying up the money and saying to each department, here's how much you get, but being very narrowly specific about what money can be spent on programmatically that fits in with the growth agenda, whatever the growth agenda may look like and what it may be. That's to say, if you spend money on education and you want to have an economy that has a lot of maths and science graduates, that you make it clear to the Minister of Education that you can only use this money to hire more math teachers or more science teachers. You can't use it to hire more consumer studies teachers or more allo teachers. Do you think that level of specificity and that level of concentration of power should be considered to be given to technocratic, policymakers in the National Treasury?
No, okay, I believe I managed to hear. I believe from what I've been observing, it's critical that National Treasurer continue to direct the area of spending and monitor closely government departments and all other institutions that are allocated money by the Treasurer. Because we made the point earlier to say we are in a nation where corruption is increasing at a higher pace, so to say, because as reported by investigative bodies recently and long before. So that makes it Treasurer being in control and keeping an eye on it reduces the levels of corruption somehow. So you will know that the spending general, as we earlier highlighted on spending on public wage bill, allow income to be available in hands of consumers, which is spent on the economy and allow economy to grow because spending multiplies, as explained by the Canadian theory in economy. So that is one of the mechanisms that will allow our economy to recover. But the challenge we are confronted with is just that the corruption gets to redirect these resources that are meant for something good.
Yeah. Give us a call, 086 000 2032. Let's go back to that WhatsApp voice note that we had a terrible echo, and hopefully it is good this time around.
Hi, good evening, Oliver, and your guests. Yeah, understandably, we are largely focused onto ESCOM because of energy crisis, load shedding, and just recently announced by the former CEO that there was high-profile politicians that are involved in corruption within ESCOM. So now, notwithstanding that, but when we just a little bit focus onto other SOEs, how are we faring there? Is there any growth? When looking at their balance sheets, are there any positivities that we can identify, highlight within other SOEs? There's Denel, there's lots of other of those. So if you could just for a second focus on those and find out if there are any positive highlights there. This is Baba from the Eastern Cape. Thank you.
I guess I want to rephrase and maybe add to that question and more specifically ask later to you. Are there growth opportunities in South Africa? Something that we look at, like if we put our efforts and our money in there and get that right, it certainly will work for the economy. Not a panacea in that it will be a silver bullet and solve all our problems, but these are growth opportunities where if we've just focused on it correctly, and I guess they have to show positive signs at the moment, but do opportunities like that exist in our economy?
Absolutely, no doubt. South Africa specifically, we must remember, is incredibly rich in non-renewable resources, which I know is a controversial topic, and in renewable resources. I recently read that we're actually extremely rich in the precious metals and minerals that are required in a lot of the new green technology. I mean, that feels like a go figure in my head. As I said, it's not a silver bullet, but that serves as opportunity for extreme growth, in my opinion. And, the big topic at the moment is the green transition, and it's a valid one, of course.
Yeah.
However, Africa is different. We're not the West, as they say, and it's likely that we need to tap into a bit more of our non-renewable energy before we're able to transition completely. And I think there is a lot of opportunity in that. We're an incredibly rich country, so that's my opinion on that.
Yeah. Especially, are there growth opportunities that we're not exploiting sufficiently?
If you may repeat the question, please.
Do we have growth opportunities as a country in our economy that we're not exploiting sufficiently, not making the right investment into, not having the right policy and legislative and framework around it? Are there opportunities that can really get us out of the woods as a country if we just focused on them, and what would they be?
Yes, most definitely. We have an incredible skilled workforce. As you know, the high number of unemployed graduates. Even though I may argue that it is systematic because people don't acquire relevant skills that are needed by the economy. But every year we are producing sufficient graduates in all sectors of the economy, including the most difficult one, accounting. People argue, but you see, when you are only in these days, people left, right, and center have been approved by SAICA to be qualified chartered accountant. So basically, we just need a direction in terms of building confidence into business. Those international, multinational for foreign direct investment to flow in. We have mining sector that is efficient. We are reaching mineral resources. We have wetland, land that can be used for agricultural purposes. All those are areas of investment. New technologies, because we have the skill. It's just that businesses are not willing to come forward given the challenges that we're experiencing to make foreign direct investment. If we were to look at the country like China, make economic miracles through creating a conducive environment for foreign businesses to come in. That is the direction we need as South Africa.
Absolutely. I want us to move on to perhaps one of the final themes I want to look at, and that is the fiscal outlook going forward. And I want to bring you in here, Khwitzione. When we take we need more money as a country. Obviously, we need more money. There's one of two ways we get more money. You grow the economy, and from that you're able to collect more tax, or alternatively, you tax more of what there currently is in the economy. And Minister Enoch Godongwana seems to be very tax averse. He seems to be very reluctant on increasing tax. In fact, he has, over the last two budget speeches he's given, he has given a great deal of tax leeway. We didn't see a significant increase in excise, for instance, for syntax categories. We didn't see an increase in personal income tax, perhaps just nifty shifting around of certain categories, of certain tax bracket categories, right? And what last year we saw a great surprise, saw a reduction in corporate income tax. Is it, and there's an ongoing conversation in South Africa, as you know, about a wealth tax, to be able to tax the wealthiest in the country a lot more than we currently tax them, to be able to do a lot more. But is there room to maneuver around our tax instruments that may give hope to the future, at least our fiscal outlook over the medium to short to medium term?
Yeah, exactly. There is chance to achieve some fiscal consolidation over the next few years. You mentioned tax. You mentioned reducing taxes and taxing more, but there is also foreign direct investment. I know there is a negative culture around borrowing, especially in SA, but borrowing is also gives you a chance to expand your business, to grow your economy, to invest on things that can grow the economy. So the government just needs to create an environment that is compatible with such things. Like most recently, the grey listing. The grey listing is definitely going to affect the investment things in the country. So they need to make a commitment to making sure that they create an environment that is compatible with investment, that is compatible with economic growth. And as far as that increasing taxes go in the minister's recent speech, we are a country that is characterized by high levels of unemployment, high levels of poverty. So not increasing taxes in those areas was not as bad as it seems, because you need to make sure that the people can survive. You need to make sure that the conditions are livable. It's just a matter of changing policy, being more effective on some things to make sure that the environment is compatible. Because even if you look at other financial markets, there is huge room for investment in our financial market. They can allow investment, they can allow borrowing from international counterparts. It's a matter of making sure that the government is very direct and in creating an environment that allows them to do that, because there is an opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Leila, are we overtaxed, or is there space to get a little bit more out of the tax base?
Well, you mentioned the term wealth tax, and I think that is where a lot of our solutions lie, especially when looking at inequality. Inequality is a huge problem in our country, and the rich got richer in a time of COVID, even.
Yeah.
And I think that really is a signal of where we should be focused. Again, controversial, but income inequality is actually the main source of inequality, because we have so many unemployed, and we have a couple of executives in different businesses earning twice as much as people see in their lifetimes. So I think a wealth tax is definitely something we need to explore as a country, specifically South Africa. It seems, in my opinion, as a young person, quite obvious.
Yeah, the typical answer is that, well, we're going to see a capital flight if you impose a wealth tax and if you increase taxes on the rich, and those are real concerns that people have. Are they rooted in fact? Will we see a capital flight?
I think it's true, and I don't know if I can say it's true. I think it's a value. It makes sense, the concern. However, I think it's part of making the difficult choices. Are we trying to keep people who would avoid paying tax in our country? Maybe that gets very ideological. But however, we're in a tough position. I think it's time to make tough decisions. Capital flight is concerning. However, maybe that's a risk worth taking.
Yeah. Specifically, is there space for getting more out of the tax base, especially the uber wealthy?
No, thank you for the question. So I believe we should clap for Minister for successfully managing not to increase taxes, especially to ordinary South Africans, because as we speak, we are in our inequality sitting at 63%. So we can recommend the tax increase tax for wealthy, but when you look at ordinary people, they are squeezed. We are using our monetary policy advocating for inflation targeting. So interest rate is constantly increasing because of repo rate increased by the Reserve Bank. So the ordinary people are being squeezed to the limit. They are in a difficult situation. It will be better. Also, basically, it is better to continue in that direction. Other methods can be employed if government need to increase the revenue, not taxing more on South Africa.
On that, is it a positive outlook that our inflation has been, CPI has been revised downwards to 4.9% in the recent budget speech? Does that mean we're going to get some breathing space in the next monetary policy update on at least as far as interest rates are concerned? And do you think that you should get rid of inflation targeting as a monetary policy imperative, specifically?
That is a sensitive question, given the controversy around it.
Yeah.
But as far as achieving the objective of making sure that the currency is stable at all material times, that has been achieved successfully over the years. But I believe government should explore other methods like targeting exchange rate as an alternative to inflation, because that will also allow us as a nation to see if that can't take us off our misery.
That's interesting. Currency targeting over, at least from what monetary policy objectives are at the moment, which is inflation targeting. How would that work?
My apologies, I couldn't hear the question.
I'm saying that's an interesting intervention you make there around currency targeting as opposed to inflation targeting. If we were to opt for a monetary policy imperative that price stability is part of the Reserve Bank's, statutory mandate. But if you were to use currency targeting as our monetary policy imperative as opposed to inflation targeting, how would that work in practice?
Actually, I believe one of the reasons the currency is maintained, or the inflation is happening to make sure that currency is strong. Currency, when we exchange it to the other foreign currencies, we are able to make significant what we call buying from foreign countries. So that has never been explored in the recent history of South Africa, as far as I remember at least.
Yeah.
If focus will be directed on that, that will mean inflation, as explained by one of the economists from America called Philip. If inflation is allowed to increase internally within our borders, that will create more employment, and we might be getting to experience a different situation from what we have been experiencing. That'd be the gist of it.
Yeah. Look, thank you so much for that, man. Really, really, really do appreciate it. I want to thank you, Leila, so much for coming into studio. Really appreciate it. Khwitsi, thank you so much, as well as to Specifically. I also just want to congratulate you guys. You guys did incredible work with the budget speech competition. Incredible ideas that you've inserted in there. Those essays that you guys wrote were magnificent, and I really hope that you guys continue. I'm sure job offers were flowing around. National Treasury seems to be wanting to recruit you guys, and Nedbank and Old Mutual even gave you guys some money to say thank you for winning. So thank you so much for all of that. Look, actually, and I do want to encourage a lot more people to enter that competition. If you're listening, if you're an undergraduate or a postgraduate student right now, please do enter it. We need your ideas as a country. I read those essays every year and a half for the past 5 years or so. I read them every year. And if you want to enter that competition, I think just go to the website. It is budgetspeechcompetition.co.za. If you're studying anywhere in South Africa at the moment, you're able to enter that competition. The questions I think that they're asking students to focus on this year is whether or not inflation dynamics in emerging markets between 2017 and 2022 and the implications for the conduct of monetary policy with a particular focus on South Africa. That's one of the discussion questions. And the other is what your view is on the just energy transition and the potential impact on the South African economy. Is it a game changer that will support future growth, or is it just another plan doomed to fail? Those are very, very tough and controversial questions, but it really will, if we find the right answers in it, at least help us make better policies and help us, I guess, fix the economy. That's what we need to do. We need to fix the economy. That brings us to the end of the show. From myself and Banyana, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation again this evening. It is 7 o'clock. Tabiso is up next with sports, and I'll be back with you Monday morning, bright and early, 9 a.m. on The Talking Point. Cheers.
Independent and impartial. This is SAfm News.
Presidency dismisses Ramaphosa health reports and Wits University speaks on student protests. Good evening to you. The presidency spokesperson Vincent Mangweni has dismissed as an exaggeration reports that